Know the difference with Annex Wealth Management? Deanne Phillips, Director of Client Learning and Development at Annex Wealth Management, also a CFP, CDFA, and a wealth manager. Welcome back.
Hi.
Many of us are acquainted with the phrase prenup or prenuptial. When some famous couple divorces, you'll hear people ask, did they sign a prenup? But prenups and even postnups are worth discussing in certain circumstances, and that's what we're going to do with Deanne Phillips. And in fact, as we list her title, she is a CDFA, and can you explain that?
Certainly. So financial planners, and I am a CFP. We have dozens of CFPs on staff at Annex. Their role is to help people achieve their financial goals regardless of whether they're divorcing or happily married. Now, conversely, accountants, so CPAs, typically confine themselves to examining the details of a present-day scenario. But if called upon to participate in a divorce proceeding, they might calculate the taxes on dividing property combined with the effect of child support, spousal support over a very short period of time. But those accountants don't typically project further into the future. So, to best meet the needs of a divorcing client, a blend of those two ideologies is really needed, and that is what a CDFA or Certified Divorce Financial Analyst is. That role is to help both client and lawyer understand how the financial decisions made today will impact the client's financial future, and based on certain assumptions, of course, they take a look at the whole picture.
So what got my attention was an article titled, Women, Listen Up. If you aren't going to be the high-earning spouse in a marriage, you're going to want to consider prenuptial or postnuptial agreements. Don't want to stereotype. There are stay-at-home dads.
Right. Many people jump to the conclusion that if a prenup is discussed, it means that someone with substantial assets is trying to keep the spouse from getting anything if they split. And this is really a fallacy in that that's really about making sure that if there's a split, both parties are satisfied potentially, with the outcome based on perhaps a disproportionate allocation of assets when the marriage begins. But actually, it could be debt that one person comes to the marriage with, or assets. This is the time before the marriage that the non-moneyed spouse really has to negotiate their package, particularly important for those in work roles where one earns money and one might act as a CEO of the household, let's say. So stay-at-home parents, for example, while that is traditionally a woman who stays at home, yes, Danny, it could be a man. And it certainly was in my personal household. I went to work full-time, and he was the glue in the household for the kiddo.
Is this true? Stay-at-home spouses who have been in marriage after 10, 15, or 25 years have essentially given up their earning power.
Well, the problem is when you truncate your career in the workforce for a stay-at-home career, it's hard to put a monetary value on that. So there are many variables that impact if a spouse can return to a career, especially as we all age. Remember, 1/4 of divorces are over the age of 50. They're called gray divorces.
Prenups, obviously, before marriage takes place. Is a postnup something that goes into place when a spouse decides to stay home? And why is that important?
Yeah, but again, it's hard to demonstrate monetarily what their lifestyle is and why they can't earn any more. Remember that a marriage is, among many other things, a financial contract. So entering into it with a financial understanding can potentially help down the road if a split happens and emotions engage, not to mention the cost of divorce. And that can add up if you're especially trying to determine after the fact what the lifestyle would be returning to and why they can't go back to their career. Usually for postnups to be valid, most parties must show that they're getting something out of the agreement and that neither party is at a disadvantage. So postnups might be harder to enforce, particularly in community property or marital property states.
What should be in a prenup or a postnup?
Well, the biggest concerns are property division, spousal support, and business interests that come to mind. Equitable doesn't mean equal in most states. So while it is about the split if a marriage splits, it's also addressing if either has substantial debt, like student loans, or maybe one of them is expecting a large inheritance or owns a business.
It's complicated. How would Annex help navigate this process if it was needed?
Well, we aren't a law firm, so we don't draft the documents, but certainly we can make referrals to attorneys who can draft for our clients. And as my CDFA role, I will sit with anyone finding themselves in the middle or end of a splitting process and review the process itself, educate them on that, work with them and their wealth manager here at Annex on how they will look coming out of the split, so on the other side of divorce. Like any transition, there are uncertainties that our planning software and advisors can help address.
Let's not assume everybody marries young. Is this more important for second marriages?
Yeah. Now, often we see more seasoned clients deciding to marry, and sometimes they have children from previous marriages, and they want to protect those kids and protect those children's inheritance as well as take care of their new spouse. This can require some nuanced estate planning specifics in this area, and this is important to many of our clients, and that's why we have several estate planning attorneys on staff here at Annex as well. Again, we don't draft the estate planning documents, but we educate. We help them on the decisioning process so that the client's wishes are met and their children from a previous marriage aren't accidentally disinherited, for example.
Deanne Phillips, Director of Client Learning and Development at Annex Wealth Management, also a wealth manager, CFP, and a CDFA. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.